Our subject, ladies and gentlemen, is Greek shipping. And who better to talk to us about Greek shipping than Andonis Lemos, Vice President of the Union of Greek Shipowners and the Chairman of ENESEL, a leading shipping company here in Greece. So the subject is Greek shipping, international leadership made in Greece. Has a great sound to it, but is it true? That's something which we only have 20 minutes to explore, but I'm sure with Mr. Lemos's help we'll get down to some pretty interesting perceptions and thoughts about that subject. I see some very familiar faces in the audience from the shipping business in Greece, but not everyone is familiar with the story and the development of the Greek shipping industry, of course. So I'm wondering, Andoni, to start off the conversation, perhaps you can give us an idea of the status of the Greek shipping industry today.
Thanks, Nigel, and yeah, very kind words, and probably mostly undeserved. So you're actually much better placed than me to answer this, because you spend your whole life studying our industry and us. But so correct me wherever I'm factually wrong, or where you think, yeah, where you disagree. But I think we're very well placed, actually, better probably than we've ever been. In that we can talk about the numbers, you know, across various sectors. We control just under an average of 20% of the global fleet, 60% of the European fleet. But those aren't the most important numbers. The most important numbers is how is our fleet, how is it financed, and how are we as owners? And I think we can take that in various sections. As owners, we have a great variety of owners. We have owners who are in a single sector, we have owners who are cross-sector, we have large owners, we have small owners, we have owners who have traditional finance, others who have a cross-section of finance from bonds to export credit finance to Chinese leasing. We have owners who are listed. And so we have a great variety. So if you're asking if Greek shipping is poised to, we have owners who own older fleets, owners who own, the majority of us actually own modern, new fleets. We've increased our new order book by 50%. We're there for the future. So amongst us, there are definitely people who are going to survive and lead the way in the future of shipping. And there's no question that globally, international trade is going to remain, and maritime international trade is going to remain. It's vital to the global village we live in. It's vital to bringing, you know, more and more people into the middle class and out of poverty, and it's vital to the consumer to have the lowest cost of production. So shipping will remain, and hopefully many, but at least some Greeks, I believe, will remain. But I want to touch on that a second. When we talk about Greek companies, remember that they're not as Greek as they used to be. They're led by Greeks. But today, we have an international group of employees, both on our vessels and in our offices. I, for example, have an English CEO, a Canadian COO, Ukrainian port captains, Filipino chief engineers in our office, technical advisors who are Korean. So we are international companies. And obviously, that's how we've positioned ourselves, so I'm biased. And I think that that's what will help us survive. But I believe that those companies are very well placed in a modern world to face the modern challenges. And there are many, many of them. Does that help at all?
It helps a lot. You said so much in that sort of first couple of minutes that let me try to summarize a couple of the things that you said, which I really agree with from the little I know. Greek shipping probably more various, more widespread, and more international today than it's ever been in the past. Yeah. Which I think can only be a good thing in terms of its resilience and its development going forward. But you said a couple of things which just, as a snapshot, gives an amazing picture of the scope and the status of Greek shipping today. 20% roughly of global shipping capacity is owned by Greeks and managed here in Greece. 60% more or less of European shipping capacity is owned by Greeks and managed here in Greece. Those are just amazing numbers. And so I think it automatically begs the question, especially for people who don't know the background so well. Why? How? What is it that has enabled Greeks to be so successful at this industry by comparison with just about everyone else? And not just at any industry, in an industry that, as you have described it, is so thoroughly international and competitive.
Well, it's a source of great pride, because we've obviously done that with no subsidies, no governmental help, and a very level playing field globally, despite, the general perception. Obviously, we have a benign tax environment, but so does the whole world, so the only way to compete is on an equal footing. And it's a great source of pride. I think the reasons we've achieved that are different historically from the reasons we will continue to achieve it going forwards. So historically, in modern times, we're a young nation. And in modern times, we have been a poor nation. Today, we are, a middle-class nation, but not so long ago, and I mean well after the Second World War, we were not. And we didn't have an industrial backbone. And don't look at tourism today. We didn't really have tourism. So young people, men in the past, because it was a different society, who wanted opportunity. There wasn't deep university penetration. There wasn't, education was to a degree limited. Those people, if they wanted an opportunity, and they were on a small island, which is predominantly where we came from, an island which couldn't offer opportunity, you could go and work on a ship. You could be a deckhand, you could be an oiler, and you could become a chief engineer, you could become a captain. With your brothers or your cousins, you could end up owning a ship, and you could work your way out of poverty, and you could support your family, which is many of the reasons we see Filipinos, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis going to sea today. And that allowed the hardest working people to ultimately become ship owners in a very competitive environment. And that created certain companies. It also created a flexibility of mind and a broad global view, which somehow, and I'm not exactly sure what the mix or the magic potion was, created these quite strong companies. And there has been a change of the incumbents over the years. Going forwards, it's going to be very different. You need today in this highly regulated market, especially the tanker market, but even more so the bulker market, and the container market will become more and more regulated. After disasters like Baltimore, which we saw, regulation will come in. And that means running ships will be more expensive to meet the requirements of regulation. That's a good thing. I'm not criticizing. That's a great thing. Safety, efficiency, those are things we should aspire to. But it means you need a bigger fleet. And it means the incumbent is, in a way, it's harder for a new company to be born without, a good piggy bank of cash and a good fleet and good knowledge and good intellectual property within their business. So the incumbents have an advantage, and so Greeks have an advantage. And if they stay flexible, they order new vessels. And it's a very difficult environment because, the redundancy of ships is becoming quicker and quicker. As technological innovation accelerates, you can have a ship that is cutting edge and within 2 years is almost redundant because of the rule regulations, from emissions trading to ballast water, in the past. But Greeks have been very flexible, been very brave at ordering, at staying right at the forefront of making those required changes. So I'm optimistic. I don't know if all of us will be here in 25 years, but some of us will be. And there will be some new companies, but less than the 80s seeded or the 70s, would be my view. But I think we're well positioned. We have broad access to capital, we have patience, and we are vigorous. and dynamic. And because we're all here now, we're not in New York, London, we're here. We kind of compete. We inspire each other to move forwards, to make change, and that's a very dynamic environment. You know, if shipping Silicon Valley it's Athens. It's where it happens.
Yeah, very interesting range of factors and reasons. Most people are content to say, well, you know, Greeks have shipping or the sea in their DNA.
Yeah, but I'm not a geneticist, so I can't say that.
Oh, okay, so you're sticking to what you know in this conversation,
I'm sticking to what I can assume. I don't know anything. You know, I try to know nothing because then I can learn.
So it started off perhaps in an earlier incarnation, lack of alternative opportunities, which other nations had more in abundance than Greece, being a poor society, and then continuously building on that base of experience and knowledge until, you know, leading up until today, when, as you say, it's the Silicon Valley of shipping, which gives you that sort of scale. And
knowledge base,
knowledge
intellectual, you know, foundations here.
Yeah, very interesting. You know, coming back to Greece's comparative, you know, small scale, and you know, as a small country, it doesn't really play a big role in world trade itself in terms of its own imports and exports. So something like 98% of Greek shipping is active really trading between third countries. So not so much to do with Greece. What do you see Greek shipping's big contribution to Greece itself?
I'll answer that, but you know I don't agree with you. I think we've exported a lot. Philosophy, art, politics, democracy. So I think Greece has exported a lot.
And we're in Delphi. I've made a huge mistake.
You know, that's really the wrong place to say it. But yes, you know, as far as raw trade is concerned, we don't export much. But our contribution to Greece has obviously been significant, and we can take it, you know, in the material way. We can talk about the Union of Greek Shipowners and the many and plural donations they've given, be it, you know, when we had our economics crisis after the GFC, be it the double taxation that we voluntarily accepted to, be it 50 million euros now for Thessalia, be it ambulances, and the list goes on, and I'm not here to wax lyrical about it, or individuals' donations, both to their home areas and all around. So much development has come from Greeks and Greek shipping. But that isn't, you know, really the most important thing to me. The most important thing is jobs, job security, the ability of families to know they can educate their kids, buy a second home, employ people, start small businesses because they started in a shipping company, enter tourism, give their children a much broader opportunity. And the beauty of shipping is it's not aligned with the Greek economy. You know, the GFC, you know, knocked Greece and the world sideways, but shipping didn't go into recession for a couple of years after that. So there was job security. We went through a terrible decade from 2012, 11 onwards in Greece, but shipping, it struggled, but it had the wherewithal to offer job security, to continue paying 14 salaries instead of 12, you know, to increase the number of people who worked in the industry, not reduce it. And that non-alignment is something that is very useful to a nation, because when the nation is struggling, it may be that our industry, and often has been the case, is not. And maybe when we're struggling, tourism's doing great, and it gives a country, you know, where we account for 6%, possibly 8%, maybe a little bit more of the GDP of our nation, because I include the multiplier effect, which I think is very important. It gives a kind of, maybe it's low, but it gives a floor to our economy. It gives some kind of base. And I think there's value in that, and it should never be underestimated.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. You know, it's a double thing, isn't it? Greek shipping is a treasure, a national treasure, and yet an international phenomenon at the same time.
I mean, I love it, so yeah, so I think it's a treasure.
You've already touched on, and we're sort of coming, amazingly, we're coming to the end of our time. And timing is everything in shipping, so we must get this right. You've already touched on the green transition and some of the challenges. It's a huge change for the industry as a whole, not just Greeks. But I wondered if you had an opinion about whether for Greeks in particular, the green transition, decarbonizing the industry, which is a need to tackle the climate crisis,
no, I think
whether it's a challenge mainly or an opportunity.
I think it's an opportunity. I think it's nothing but an opportunity. And I think anyone who views it a different way is getting it wrong. But I think the biggest opportunity is to make a difference to the world our children, and for some of you, your grandchildren will live in. And it's important we take it seriously. And I think Greek ship owners are. You know, we have more installed scrubbers than any other fleet. We have a bigger take-up of dual fuel engines than anybody else. We have more E-type engines, D-rated engines. We are right at the forefront. You know, we have the youngest tanker fleet in the world. These are eco-tonnage. If we can't meet the legislation, I believe no one can. But we will be the closest to meeting it. I have no doubt about that. I can see it already. Some people will fall by the wayside. People always do when there is dramatic change. But that's okay, because it gives the opportunity for others to come into the business, and it allows a competitive environment. But we have to take this seriously, and I believe Greeks are taking it seriously, and I think you can just see that from our actions. So I'm optimistic, and I think we will lead the way, just like we led the way in Open 90, you know, and we thrived, and we became a bigger ship group, bigger owning country. So that's my hope. My brother and I plan to, you know, play a very active role in it, and at the end of the day, the only way to see who survived is, you know, for you and I to meet again in 25 years and, you know, have a chat about it.
I really look forward to that. Andoni, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.